On 16th November of last year, India woke up to a 4-tweet series by Prime Minister Narendra Modi as commemoration of National Press Day. His messages lauded the courage and tenacity of the journalists of our country while also reiterating the government's relentless commitment to ensuring freedom of press in an effort to make the media space more democratic and participative. Following this were a frenzy of similar tweets by fellow ministers as well as other political parties. Ironically, the utopian picture painted by these tweets cannot be further away from truth. With over 200 attacks on journalists in the last 5 years, journalism in our country is at a juncture where the words freedom of press is reduced to a mere hashtag on a page. And India's recent fall in press freedom rankings to the 142nd position is just a glaring proof of the hypocrisy at display. Journalists brave enough to report on stories that rarely come in the limelight face the brunt of online smear campaigns, physical attacks to outright murder. In 2017, the country bore witness to the horrific assassination of Gauri Lankesh, a harsh critic of the Hindutva regime. It was only a year later that Shujahat Bukhari, the editor-in-chief of Rising Kashmir, was shot dead right outside his office. Reports say that there have been almost 40 journalists killed between the years 2014 to 2019. What is equally worrisome is that in the cases of more than 30 journalists who have been killed since 2010, there have been only 3 convictions, largely due to the apathetic nature of the police, which ultimately affects investigations. Perpetrators commonly include political party members, religious sects, student groups, criminal gangs, and local mafias. The government is equally complicit in enforcing such censorship, done quite differently. Popular state apparatuses include filing of criminal cases, charges of sedition, arrests, and registration of FIRs, to name a few. And sadly, there is little respite in terms of recourse, with even the Press Council failing to uphold the rights of journalists in multiple instances.
At the other end of the spectrum, we have powerful media houses. Ideally, we would expect these players to take the reins in terms of investigative journalism and report stories that demand to be heard. The reality, however, is much more grim. For most channels, the news is now just a metric, judged not for its urgency but its potentiality to generate more views. A majority of media houses are owned by multinational corporations whose primary aim is to rake in money. For them, journalism is a business, a news a commodity. To increase viewership, stories are manipulated and presented to the public without any facts, which are then discussed and deliberated upon endlessly. The public is promised entertainment, and as ratings increase, integrity plummets. Every fact is twisted and every comment microanalyzed. The coverage of Sushant Singh Rajput's tragic demise is a testament to this. News hours were turned into nothing less of a media trial, with channels taking upon themselves to play the role of the judge, jury, and the executioner. The problem is further compounded with many of these companies acting in nexus with political parties. Browse through media channels and you will see the news stories are largely similar, with just the crux of it's altered in favor of the party sponsoring the company. Critical issues are no longer discussed. Instead, their importance is downplayed by going off on a tangent that is largely irrelevant to what actually matters. Take, for example, the farmers' protest. When Rihanna tweeted in support of the farmers, mainstream news networks took to questioning her character instead of discussing the real issues at hand. As futile arguments drone on incessantly, voices of the marginalized are silenced. Caste plays a significant role, especially within media spaces. Representation helps a great deal in making aware the plight of those at the bottom. But how is this possible when the ones at the helm predominantly belong to the upper caste? About 71% of the top jobs in national media are held by Hindu upper caste men. In relation to this, the proportion of women, non-upper caste, and Muslims are abysmal. and that of Dalit and Adivasis almost non existent.
Journalistic integrity is thus facing a major threat, and the consequences brought with it are even more dangerous. Dialogues lead to newer and sometimes better perspectives, thereby playing an essential role in sustaining democracy. However, the absence of an effective press results in parochial attitudes and one dimensional opinions. It leads to an intolerant and vitriolic culture, with differing viewpoints being treated with increasing hostility. This is largely seen today, with anyone challenging the status quo branded anti national. At its core, journalism is a tool that helps hold the government accountable, but it has now become a tool wielded by the government to escape accountability. It is imperative that we create an atmosphere that doesn't vitiate credible journalism, but the question of how remains. The Parliament needs to enact a law for protecting journalists, especially for those working in conflict ridden regions. This was promised by the Congress in its 2018 election manifesto, but it is yet to be fulfilled. The Press Council needs to be proactive in ensuring that journalists are not targeted for their work. There are various independent journalists who have been making significant strides in terms of unbiased reporting and investigative work. As an audience, it is them that we need to support and listen to, instead of diverting our attention to fake news and gossip columns. Furthermore, additional resources and easier access to funding must also be made available to them so that they can continue amplifying voices that need to be heard. All this is easier said than done. Both political and public willpower becomes necessary for collective change to happen. But until then, let us hope that the pillars of the Fourth Estate and democracy along with it doesn't come crashing down before it's too late.